Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
Are you a new or experienced investor wanting to learn how to have a successful syndication business? Learn from the nation's leading syndication expert, my friend, Whitney Sewell Chopra. He has created a multifamily academy where you will learn everything about deal analyzing to selecting emerging markets, managing assets, and much more. In the academy, you'll find over 500 lectures and templates to help you run a successful syndication business. Your membership also gives you access to Vinny every Wednesday through masterminding and coaching calls. Vinny came to the U.S. with only $7 and now is a CEO of 5 companies, acquiring and managing a portfolio of more than 3,500 units. He's completed 26 successful syndications ranging from 50 to 500 units and created a portfolio valued over $200 million in commercial real estate. He built the academy to teach and mentor investors like you to succeed. To learn more about the Multifamily Academy, text LEARN, L-E-A-R-N, to 474747 or call his team at 925-766-3518. This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Damion Lupo. Thanks for being on the show, Damion.
Hey, thanks for having me, Whitney. It's great to be here.
No, it's an honor to have you on the show. We've talked about it a couple of times now, but we met at an event and heard about this thing QRP, and I didn't have a clue what that was. But we're learning that it's a very valuable, some very valuable information that us in this industry need to know. And Damien's got the answers, and we're happy to have him on the show. But a little about him, he started his first business at the age of 11, even hired his parents to help him. He started more than 50 companies, and that alone is so impressive. But dozens in real estate investments and development companies, holds 3 black belts. Wow. That's watch out. I'm glad it's just the camera and we're not in person. But he's a sought after financial consultant for high profile private clients on a mission to empower Main Street through tools and teaching of financial transformation. So Damion, thank you again for your time and sharing your expertise with us and me and the listeners today. So, but tell them who you are and let's get right into what this thing is, this QRP.
I think the big difference about me is I started off when I was 11 looking at a problem. The problem is I wanted to play Nintendo, and my parents told me we were broke. And I think we're taught that there are limits in our life. And so I just looked at that and I wasn't beaten down at that point yet where I said, okay, I guess that's the answer. I just said, I'm going to fix this. So I went out and bought games in bulk, had my parents drive me around, and then sold them, played them, and then sold them off one at a time. And I ended up doing that in real estate after, about 10 years later, when I was around 20, and it was really just finding problems. And so I think that's the key for my success and my failures is finding problems, solving them, and then being willing to make mistakes, which really is how we get wealthy. And it's an interesting thing that I was talking to Robert Kiyosaki a few months ago. And if you don't know, he's the guy that wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, if you're listening. And he said, look, the wealth is not about cash or cash flow. I said, yeah, it's confidence. He's like, no, wrong. And I said, oh, dang. Okay, what is it? And he said, it's really about the amount of lessons that you've learned by doing things. And I went, wow. So I'm like super wealthy because I screw everything up. I've had 50 plus companies and 40 of them have been flops. So this is the reality of being out there. And so my superpower is being willing to go out there and disconnect from the judgment of making a mistake. I don't give 2 rips what somebody thinks about me. I just call it like I see it and then learn as fast as I can. That's the big difference with who I am.
That's impressive. So I liked what you said there. Or first you said being willing to make mistakes, but then it's being willing to disconnect from what other people think, and that's hard for most of us to do, no doubt.
It's the big differentiator. I think that's why most people are stuck because they're trying to get. They're basically waiting to leave their house until all the lights are green on the way to wherever they're going. And knowing that there are going to be accidents and speed bumps and potholes and people jumping out. And I grew up in Alaska, so there might be a moose that jumps in front of you. Who knows what's going to happen? And nowadays it's about adapting. We're in an interesting time with real estate where it's very hot. There's a lot of opportunities and there's a lot of things that are overpriced. And back in 2005, 6, 7, I had 150 houses, made many, many, many millions of dollars. And I thought I was Superman and 10 feet tall and bulletproof. And so I went out there and started building and buying all over the country like a crazy person and lost $20 million in 2008. That's because my ego took over. And I see a lot of people doing that now, which is why mentoring and having guys like you that are out there talking and teaching and being real and sharing candid information is so valuable. If you think you know everything because you've made a couple of $100,000 or a couple of $1,000,000, you're about to have an awakening. And I think that that's where we're at in the cycle. It's very valuable, though, to be in the cycle and not just watching the cycle. You just have to make sure that your ego isn't driving your ship off a cliff.
Such valuable information right there. If we could just replay that a few times to help all of us, That's awesome. So, but you have a specialty, right? Or you've really niched down and became an expert, in a way that in this field that we all need to know about. But let's get into, there's probably many listeners who have never heard of this before. So I guess break it down, what it is, and let's dive into why we need to know it and how it can help us.
Yeah. So one of the things that's really important is that the riches are in niches, and it doesn't matter whether you're buying real estate or you have a business. If somebody says, well, what do you do? And you start listing, you roll off 15 things you do, you're going to be broke the rest of your life. I mean, that's just reality. So I about 10 years ago, I looked at everything I was doing and I started asking, well, what's the biggest impact? And what came up was that, like, my dad was, at that point, he was still alive, and he was struggling financially. He played by the rules and had a 401k from his government job. And he basically was broke because he played by the rules of taking your money, giving it to Wall Street and hoping it worked out. So basically his plan was, I'm going to smoke a bunch of hopium and then wait. And it didn't work. He woke up broke. So I said, well, there's got to be something different that we can do. And I sort of stumbled into this space of the retirement plans. And what I really niched into is the qualified retirement plans. And we call it the QRP. We developed something called the EQRP. Basically, qualified plans are all the 401ks and the IRAs. And most of us have heard of 401ks and IRAs, and maybe in real estate, self-directed IRAs. And the problem is we don't know enough. We know enough to be dangerous. And so we do something and then we're setting ourselves up. For example, most people, if they do something, they tend to do a self-directed IRA, invest in real estate. And then when something works, they get this huge tax from UBIT, which is unrelated business income tax. And they go, wait, I thought this was a tax deferred or a tax-free Roth account. And the reality is nobody told them. So we should probably talk about the IRAs and the other options and really how to use this, because whether you're a passive investor and you want to use retirement accounts and invest tax-free forever, or whether you're raising money, I mean, there's $29 trillion inside these plans, $29 trillion, and it's just sitting there. Most of it's stuck in Wall Street, and guaranteed there are trillions of that wants to leave Wall Street, but people don't know it's an option. So it's like wide open, and it's the ultimate pile of cash. And for those of you that have it, I mean, you're just sitting on something that could do a lot better than a casino in New York.
Wow, 29 trillion. I can't even fathom that kind of number, but yeah. And I also want to get into like how to connect with these people and how we, let them know that there is a different option and obviously connect with them. But yeah, let's break it down. Go ahead.
So basically what we have is under the qualified plan. Qualified plan just means that you've got their tax advantages to having a vehicle. So if you think of qualified plans, whether it's an IRA, a 401k, any type of QRP, these are just vehicles. It's like a car. And so the question is, who's driving the car? And with a self-directed IRA, you're kind of in the passenger seat. You sort of get to direct traffic, but you still have a custodian. That custodian's in the driver's seat, and you sometimes are waiting for them to wake up from a nap, like they're going to do what they want to do, and you miss a deal because they don't fund it in time, and it's really frustrating. If you've got a traditional 401k, you're in the trunk. Like, you're literally stuck wondering where your thing is going, and maybe it'll not crash, and you hope that works. With an EQRP, with what we provide, you're in the driver's seat. I mean, you've got your checkbook, you've got control, you've got a bulletproof car that you're driving around. I mean, like, you're a badass with a retirement account. And that's really what this boils down to: what kind of car you're in and which position you're in. So you have to decide, you want to drive it, you want to sort of navigate it, or you want to be blind in the trunk. And those are the different pieces, the different options people have with a qualified plan like the EQRP. One of the coolest things for real estate investors is that you can have all the leverage you want and you're not paying tax. And here's why this is important. Most people are using IRAs, and an IRA, if you invest, I'll give you an example. Had a client that bought a house with their self-directed IRA. It was a Roth IRA, so shouldn't be any tax at all. They ended up making about They made like $58,000 in profit, and they were very happy. It was mostly debt. So they had a little bit of money from their IRA, mostly debt, made this profit, and their accountant said, "Hey, when you close, you're going to owe about $20,000 in taxes." And they said, "Why? It's in an IRA. It's a Roth IRA." And the accountant said, "Because of UDFI, unrelated debt financed income. If you have leverage in a real estate project and you use an IRA, you're going to be paying a tax. It's going to be about 37% on your leveraged profit." So they had like
Wow.
90% leverage. So 90% of their profits were taxed. This is a bad idea. And people go, "Well, that sucks." And I say, yeah, it does, until you actually realize there's an option. You can switch. You can move it into an EQRP. That gives you exemption from that tax. Even if you already invested, you can literally move your assets over. It's called an in-kind rollover. I mean, this is an epic opportunity for people to keep their money. And if you have an IRA invested in leveraged real estate, or you're going to raise money for your syndication, you're going to have debt. Tell people about this, because you're going to have happy investors or really pissed off investors that are going to sue you if you're raising money and they get a big old tax bill. I mean, this is the reality. People are going to get sued. Don't get sued. Sued is stupid. It's not fun. I can tell you firsthand experience. Lawsuits drain you, they suck, and they're not necessary in this space.
So, tell us what that, the EQRP is, and then, how we explain this to an investor who's really set on, the Roth IRA or self-directed.
So the EQRP is an enhanced qualified retirement plan. It's a unique, registered, trademarked process to build a plan. It's under the 401 section. So there's lots of different plans. There's 401ks, there's solo 401ks, 457s, there's all these things. The EQRP is a product and a process that allows people, whether they have employees, don't have employees, have a big business, a small business, they have a lemonade stand. Doesn't matter what your situation. I mean, your grandmother can literally apply and be qualified. And it allows you to invest directly with your checkbook. So you can go out there and invest with leverage. A couple of really big things in addition to that. The EQRP gives you the ability to have a $50,000 credit line, meaning if you want to write yourself a check, you want to go buy a car, you don't need to go to the bank anymore. Just write yourself a check out of your account for up to 50 grand, and you're able to be the bank, and then you're paying yourself interest. And this is different than an insurance product. This is totally different. This is just your money sitting in there and you're in charge. So you've got options like that. You can buy physical gold if you want to and keep it. You can't do that with an IRA. I mean, the reality is this is control. And if you want to take those, the mission that I have is financial freedom. It's breaking the financial bondage that people have shackles on. I mean, it's whether it's Wall Street or it's their parents giving them beliefs, it's society, it's their neighbors. We all have these financial shackles. And this takes one of those shackles off, where you don't have a custodian, because effectively you're the trustee. I mean, that's the coolest thing. You're in control. Now, Whitney, there are people that should not be in control. They're probably not listening to this, but there are people that should not have their own money because they're literally just too reckless.
That's a good point.
People will say, who's this not for? I'm like, well, I mean, how many times have you been to Vegas recently? Well, I go every month. I'm like, you're probably not a good candidate because you're just going to do dumb things. So get somebody in the way of between you and your money. So this is totally in your control.
Okay, so it's totally in our control. We want control. Why don't we have control with the SDIRA? Instead of going this route.
Yeah, so with a self-directed IRA, there's a custodian, and usually a custodian is going to require a crap load of paperwork, and it's to cover their butt, and it does help you stay in compliance, but most of it just slows everything down. And as you know, the syndications, the world of investing is not getting slower, it's getting faster. People say, hey, I got a deal. It gets subscribed. If it's a good deal, it gets subscribed in a matter of days, sometimes hours. And so you can't wait for a custodian to fund something that takes 3 weeks. With an EQRP, it takes you 3 minutes. It's how long it takes to write a check or issue a wire out of your account. So you're able to act and be a part of deals. So speed is a big part. Custodians tend to have a model. And the reason we haven't heard about this, people say, well, I've never heard of this, right? I mean, we were talking about that earlier. And it's because there's not a transaction fee. There's not an assets under management, AUM. And if you remember anything, remember AUM. It's your arch enemy. It's like the villain in our Marvel comic conversation here. AUM is what Wall Street uses. It's a percentage of your assets. It's how they make their money. And when you have control of your money, nobody's getting AUM. So the Wall Street firm, Goldman Sachs, does not want to tell you, hey, take all your money out of here and run it yourself, because they lose AUM. There's no more percentage. That's why you haven't heard about it. Custodians get percentages, they get transaction fees, and so do Wall Street. So you're getting information that puts you in the driver's seat, and it takes all those fees out of somebody's their retirement plan. Basically, you are their retirement plan. You're being fed on. That's the reality of our system.
So how do we get started, in a plan like this, or even as a deal sponsor, if we have an investor who could use a vehicle like this, or the value of it, how do we help them get started?
Well, the easiest thing to do is to learn about the qualified plans. I wrote a book called the QRP book. And it's very complicated to understand what this book is about, right? It's the QRP book. It just gives you the nuts and bolts. And I mean, I did this because, and it took a couple of years. There were a number of attorneys that were involved, and we basically broke it down into human language. There's lots of good books, but what was missing was just a simplified version with the actual backbone of the IRS in there, and understanding. So as a syndicator, you can say, I've got somebody that wants to invest with me. They've got an IRA. That's a bad idea. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to introduce them to the QRP. We're going to give them a copy of the QRP book. And we also have a condensed summary, if you will. It's a report. It's about 12, 13 pages. And it consolidates the book because most people don't have time to read a couple hundred pages, but this does give them backbone and background. And then, you say, hey, this is the better choice. And you don't need to be an expert. I mean, the truth is it's about teams. Syndications, it's not about doing it all yourself. You got to have a team. And part of your team is a company, and we want to be a part of that. We want to support you and your investors. And so we can help support that by building that plan, helping them transition those funds and giving them control. And so that you can actually have your deals done quickly and efficiently without a lot of brain damage.
So, why are the funds not taxed, if we go this route as opposed to the SDIRA? Like, if we're financing it, on that percentage that's financed, or why are they not taxed?
So the tax code, I don't even know what the current number is, 70,000 pages or something. It's a lot. So why are certain things in there? Because somebody somewhere at some point in time, because this has been around since the early 70s. ERISA, which set up 401ks, and this whole world was in the early 70s, 74 and 78. At some point, somebody said, okay, well, let's exempt 401k type of plans and the qualified plans under the 401 section. There's literally this line item that says 401s with debt leverage are exempt. And in IRAs, they're not. They're subject to it. So we don't exactly know why. My guess, if I'm guessing, is that there's more money in IRAs than there are in these type of plans. And so the IRS said, well, we're going to have more revenue if most people use IRAs, self-directed IRAs, to invest in real estate. And they go, that's where our revenue is going to be. So that's who we're going to tax. Most people aren't using this yet, what we're providing. And so there's not a huge amount of revenue from the IRS. I think it's possible it could change over the next 5-10 years. But right now, huge opportunity. It's kind of like the Roth system. That is probably not going to be around forever. I mean, Mitt Romney has $100 million plus in his Roth account. And as people get wealthier, then with these Roth accounts, people in Congress are going to say, hey, let's tax these things. And so they're probably going to grandfather, and then they're going to change the rules. So right now, I don't exactly know why, but I do know it is a fact. And you are exempt if you use a 401 type of plan versus an IRA.
Nice. So, as a syndicator, and I'm talking to that investor, I know we've covered many of these points, but give me like 2 or 3 main things that I need to make sure to tell them about, or at least maybe I need to study to understand. I'm not going to be an expert like yourself, but maybe just give me 2 or 3 things that I need to make sure I understand to know when I'm having that conversation, so the investor knows that this is a vehicle that they need to know about and maybe do their due diligence about it as well.
So the key points are that when you have something transferred, you're eligible to transfer funds from any IRA other than a Roth IRA or an inherited IRA. So most of the IRAs people have are deferred income IRAs. They've rolled over a 401k, or they just put money in it. You can roll over those funds and assets. So the big keys are you can roll your IRA over and you can have it inside of an EQRP. And why would you do that? Because you can invest in things quickly and without getting penalized and losing 37% of the profits, because you're exempt from any of that leveraged income. So really, there's only two main points as a syndicator that you need to remember: speed, and you're not getting penalized with that tax. Everything else is just gravy. It's cherries. It's all the options, and that's cool, but you don't need to remember 20 things. I mean, give somebody the book, but those are your 2 things: speed and the ability to be exempt from the leveraged investment. That I don't know what else somebody needs unless they hate their money. I mean, if you hate your money, stick with an IRA.
So if they're in an IRA or a Roth, they can't convert it, but pretty much any other way they could utilize this.
Yeah. So let me make sure that everybody's clear. If an IRA is eligible to move over, unless it's a Roth IRA. Basically anything else that you have, if you have 401ks, if you have IRAs, if you have self-directed IRAs, if you have a thrift savings plan with the government, like all these things, and there's no limit. You can have 50 of them and roll them all over. You've got unbelievable options to get control of your money and then invest in almost anything you want. I mean, I have people investing in foreign coffee farms and stuff all over the world, and they're investing in gold, syndications, startups. Like they're doing everything. It's very cool, and it's 10 times better. I mean, if you want to pull a Grant Cardone thing, it's 10x. I mean, it's truly better.
Damion, what's been the hardest part of this for you? Like reaching out to syndicators and investors, and what is the most difficult part of that business in this industry specifically?
Most of the marketing, when you're dealing with something that's outside of what the mainstream is, most people say, well, I've never heard of this. And so they're trying to figure out why they haven't heard about it. And there's usually a roller coaster. So people go, wait, what are you talking about? Never heard of that. And then there's the next phase. This seems kind of too good to be true. And then after that, after they realize, wait a second, this has been around for 45 years, they go, holy crap, give me that thing right now. And now I'm pissed off I didn't do it 10 years ago. So there's this roller coaster process. And the beginning process is sometimes challenging because there's a lot of, unfortunately, there are some bad financial advisors out there that will say, oh, you're too stupid to do this, and this is very complicated. And they're just protecting their self-interest. And so what I find is that people that have great financial advisors will have a conversation and they'll say, I want to do some real estate, and the financial advisor will either know about this or they'll say, well, let's talk with the company, let's do some research. And then they'll say, this is a great thing to add on. And so the hard part is just there's not very much information. The information is geared towards a party that is feeding off of people. And so that's the hard thing. It's like, bringing something new out. It's not new. It's been around, but it's been hidden in plain sight.
What pushed you into becoming an expert in this field?
I got pissed off watching people just basically die. Die broke. 5 years ago when my dad died, he made a comment to me a few weeks before he died. And he said, you sat down having coffee, and he looked at me and he said, there were just so many things that I wanted to do. And I looked at him and a part of me died right there because I saw that he had limited himself. He was playing it safe, and he died with regret. And a big part of that was he didn't have resources. And so I thought there's got to be a better way, because I sure as heck do not want to have that same conversation with people in my life. And I don't want to have anybody else have that conversation with their loved ones. So what can we do? We can give people tools and option and empower them. And where's all the money? It's sitting in retirement accounts. That's where most people have their money. So if we can give them ideas to tap into that so that they don't have that conversation across a coffee table, maybe life's a little bit better for people in their, when they're having those conversations. They go, wow, you know what? I am so grateful for my life, and I did it all. I did what I wanted, and I had the resources to do it. Because the conversation I had with my dad is not one you want to have. I promise. It was horrible. It was a great warning shot. Don't do this. So this is a way where I can impact a lot of people and break those shackles and free people so that they can actually make the choices so that they cut the regret. The regret is the worst thing ever. There's nothing worse than regret.
Wow. Well, we're going to have to pivot just a little bit because we're running low on time. But tell me, what's a way that you've recently improved your business that we could apply to ours?
The very beginning, one of the things I said was that riches are in the niches. And it's in my book, Unicornomics, that it just is coming out right now. I talk about the context. And so pivoting is really, if you want to look at something different, look at the framework. And really the framework is the layout, it's the game plan for whatever you're doing as an investor or as a business owner. It's really making sure you have the pieces in place before you start going out there and spending money and shooting your gun all over the place. Most people have an idea and they start spending money. They go do business cards, they go to a conference, they're just all over the place. And there's a different thing. So step back. My suggestion is blank slate yourself, put yourself down, look at Unicornomics. Download the downloads and really ask yourself, have I done all the things that I need to be successful? Or am I doing what Damion did in 2000, building up something that's going to go poof, puff the magic dragon, gone, $20 million out the window? That's what most people are doing because they don't have the right context, the framework, and the plan built before they start.
Nice. And what's one thing that's contributed to your success other than what we've already mentioned?
The failure. It's, I don't know that there's anything better than that other than a mentor that's bald or gray. And I say that at being a bald guy. When you have people that have been out there, there's a big difference between coaches and mentors. There's coaches have ideas and they have education perhaps. And then there are mentors that have been out there and they've bled and they've stubbed their toes. And I think that everybody needs a mentor. They need somebody that you can have a conversation with, and literally in 15 seconds, they go, here's what's coming, because they know at a cerebral level, they know what's coming. We all need those mentors. And look, you're going to pay the price. You're going to pay the price with experience, or you're going to pay the price. You're going to write a check for somebody else's experience. So you choose the check that you're going to write from your own experience. If you have to make all your mistakes by yourself, I promise that check is bigger than writing a check for a mentor. I mean, the mentors are the biggest game changer for anybody in anything. It's having a mentor. You got to have one. If you don't, trust me, you're going to have some lessons coming up, and they don't feel so good.
Great advice. I couldn't agree more. But how do you like to give back?
I mean, one of the problems when you're so into something, when you've got a mission, is that you get drained by certain people, and so I give until somebody almost breaks me. And it's so giving is this idea of, I'm going to almost want this more than you, and so I just quite frankly have to be careful that I don't get hyper about the wrong people and push it, because I see what the potential is. So my idea of giving back and giving is doing everything I can to give people the tools and the confidence by letting them leverage off of my confidence, because I see potential in people and they're afraid. And I say, look, nothing's going to eat you. Look, you didn't grow up in Alaska. There's no bear. Like I did, and there was a bear, and it could eat you if you trip over it. But you don't have that. And so, trust me that I can see that you're going to do this and you're going to be just fine. So giving is really about believing in people. I mean, believing in people sometimes is the biggest gift you can ever give someone.
Wow. Well, Damion, you've been a great guest. I really appreciate you elaborating on what the EQRP is and why it's valuable to us. And at least we know about you and your books, which I wanted to show right here. I do have the QRP for syndicators, and I highly encourage people to look it up or connect with you. And I put a link in the Facebook group for this book so people can find it there as well. But tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
The best thing you can do is go to qrpbook.com and get a copy of the book. It'll allow you to connect, and you'll end up inside our system to where we'll be able to communicate with you. And you know what? It's a great way to get started. I mean, go get a copy of the QRP book. It's always nice if somebody buys one on Amazon, but don't do it. I mean, you've already invested your time, so let me invest in you. You've spent the last half hour with us, so go to the website, get a copy of the book. Let me send it out to you. And I'll send you the report at the same time, where you're going to get the Cliff Notes, so you can speed through that and then share it. I mean, I think that just starting with something is going to get you in the right direction. It's called momentum. So, if you're probably on your phone right now, and you can literally go to qrpbook.com on a browser, it's a free book. I'm going to mail you this book. Let me do that for you and get you started. At least you'll have a new tool, a new arrow in your quiver.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by Life Bridge Capital. Life Bridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. Life Bridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.